Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Gaijin made an It's Fixed, and I thought we would have a look at it. There's also an accompanying changelog, which has a bunch of the changes in it about what's kind of been going on with the game over the last period. There's some buffs to CAS, there's also some buffs to good old radar controls, and also a few other updates as well. So, in this video, we're going to have a look at all of them. We might also have a look at the graphic improvements that they talked about, where they've basically improved global illumination to make it a little bit more expanded, therefore it covers some other areas, and also some other graphical improvements in the last major update. I wish I had the hardware to be able to run all of this stuff, because the game truly does look amazing, but also at the same time, it takes a lot of PC power, and even with my pretty good rig, it's still not up to snuff in terms of that. As always, if you enjoy the content, make sure to subscribe, and also like the video. Let's get started. So Gaijin have done an It's Fixed, and the first thing they talk about is basically all of the issues from the major updates, the missiles, and also some of the others. And I thought we'd just kind of go through it verbatim, because they do actually go into why this became an issue. They say the release of the major update unfortunately came with some unforeseen and complicated problems, with the team working effectively around the clock to get them resolved as soon as possible. We always try to identify as many issues during internal testing and the dev server with the help of the community, but as War Thunder is a very technical and complex game with lots of interconnecting parts, it isn't always possible to catch everything. We're starting this edition of It's Fixed with key issues that we corrected after the launch of the major update. For aircraft, certain planes sometimes would be unable to move on runways. Damage from air-to-air missiles and also SAMs, as well as HE shells fired at aircraft, were calculated incorrectly, and missiles could lose their target for no apparent reason. On the ground, allied and enemy vehicles sometimes moved jerkily, and some maps had collision issues. All these bugs have already been fixed, and we want to elaborate on one of them in more detail and explain a little bit what happened. One of the main problems that many players faced at top ranks, unstable damage with missiles, is a manifestation of a bug related to the incorrect position of explosions when calculating hits on aircraft. This extrapolation error had occurred only in online battles and not consistently. So despite the fact that the erroneous code appeared on the open dev server and stayed there for about a week, we were unable to detect the bug due to its unstable reproduction. And although the first significant fix in the damage model, which was able to compensate for many manifestations of this bug, was uploaded to the main server after 24 hours, we were able to find the root of the problem and fix it only after 6 days. We apologize for any inconvenience experienced in the parts of the game that were affected, and thank you for understanding. You know what also might be nice? If you just gave people, I don't know, just a little thing just to say sorry. Like, I was actually reading a thread the other day, how it's really interesting how different game developers, like, deal with stuff like this. Like, there's a lot of, like, Asian game developers where if the game doesn't work for, like, I don't know, an hour or 2 hours, they throw stuff at their players just to basically be like, look, we do care about you. Whereas other game developers, whether they be European or North American, just don't, and it's just expected that stuff just doesn't work. And it's very interesting to see the different parts of the community and how they react to these types of things on an international game. But I feel like it could easily have been a good idea for Gaijin just to throw a bone here, because you're saying basically the parts of the matchmaking which had missiles attached to it, whether they be ground or air, were just not working for 6 days, a whole week nearly. So yeah, it might be worth just throwing a bone, you know, giving people a day of premium or giving them some bonuses, some boosters or something like that, just to say, you know, we screwed up and we're sorry and we'll hopefully get it done. But unfortunately, that's not there. They also added some other stuff. So they talked about the pinned weapon selector, which is something that they've added in. For me personally, it's not really that useful, but basically what it means is you can pin it onto the bottom of the screen. Therefore, you can see stuff faster, and therefore you can click on stuff faster. Now, when it comes to top tier or high tier air, the game is so reaction based. I don't know when I'm going to have time to be able to click on these things in order to kind of push forward and use them instead of using keybinds, which basically do it instantaneously. But maybe some people will have a good time with it, and obviously that is the most important. Then we have the radar control screen target filter. This is actually really nice. They basically added a screen target filter to the radar mode where you can now screen for enemies or allies. And it's really nice they added this. This was one of the major issues with what was kind of going on. It would be nice if they could add an additional filter for, actual players or, missiles or ordnance coming in. But then again, you probably want to see all of that stuff moving around, which is quite good. The other thing they've also done is they've massively improved the TV Seeker. So the TV Seeker looks insanely kind of quality-wise good now for the Maverick. The TV homing head now, and when looking at it, when it comes to the optic, they've basically just made it insanely clear. So there's hardly any stuff that's actually stopping you seeing things now. So the basic idea, at least for this, is it's way easier to home in stuff, and it's way easier to see targets on the ground. It's so much more clear, and that is kind of worrying because they were already incredibly strong. One thing I do want to remind people is even though they've added in all of these fancy AAs into the game at the toppest tier of the game, there are other tiers of the game which still suffer a lot from the CAS epidemic. You have the mid-tiers with all of the bombs which just fly all over the place, many vehicles with 3 independently dropped bombs nowadays which just hammer things, or even more independently dropped bombs, and Mavericks which, start off with stuff like the Hunter, for example, which you just can't counter with any AAs that exist. And then you have stuff like, of course, the A10 and many others that have very good fire and forget munitions. So overall, is the CAS stuff solved? Not really. I don't think it'll ever will be. It's better at top tier, but at every other tier, it's still struggling. We also have an update, 2.47.0.47, where they changed a bunch of other things alongside of the It's Fixed. The first part of it is for aircraft, and we have the CEP, or the Circular Error Probable, for munitions with GNSS guidance has been reduced according to known data. I think this is talking about something. They basically added kind of a radius where the GNSS could hit around where you've actually locked. So basically, it's not going to just pinpoint hit the same point over and over and over again. There is kind of a bit of variability where it's going to land. So they're actually adding in a proximity kind of deal instead of it just hitting the same place every time. Now, this is going to annoy a lot of players because it basically means that you can't trust your eyes, but also it's there, I'm guessing, as a realistic change, and also just as a balance change, because all of those munitions are insanely annoying to fight against, and maybe Gaijin has finally realized that. So maybe that's the kind of setup. The A10C, the ability to simultaneously use a targeting pod and the AGM-65D missiles on the turret launchers with 3 missiles has been added, so that thing got stronger. The Hunter FGA-9, the position of the drop tanks has been corrected so that the drop tanks and the air-to-air missiles can be used together, which is kind of fun. There was also a bug that made it possible to destroy the nuclear bomb and therefore make it explode before it hit the ground. That's been fixed. Why? I don't know where I sit on this one. I get that it takes a lot of effort to get a nuclear bomb, and maybe like shooting it out the sky doesn't take a lot of effort, but I do like the idea of people being able to defend a bit more against it. I do think there is a bit of an issue at top tier right now where the nuclear bombers are just kind of worthless. They just get hunted down very easily, but at other tiers, it does actually matter in at least some of the ways. The other stuff that's going on for the Ka-29, there was a bug that caused no change in the helicopter's performance characteristics when equipping the 30mm 2A42. The Ka-29 is always a funny one. I see it every so often because it's in a bit of a dodgy BR, and people always try and make it work, but I don't think I've ever actually seen it, work properly. The D4Y1, there was a bug that caused the bomb bay doors to not disappear when 500 kg Navy type Model 50 Model 2 bombs were installed. The AGS-37 and also AJ-37 a radar page on the MFD has been added. Oh, that's fun. So if you're in the cockpit, you'll be able to see that. The Kafir Canard, there was a bug where the RWR was not displayed in the cockpit. That's been fixed, very positive. And the Mirage 3 SC70, the new Swiss one, there was a bug that made it impossible to jettison the drop tanks if a booster or conformal fuel tank was installed, and that's been fixed too. They've also nerfed the Rafale. Basically, the steady turn rate has been reduced by approximately 1 degrees per second, with the remaining fuel weight of approximately 1,300 kgs. I've heard that the Rafale is like performing insanely well right now, but at the same time, I don't have any experience with it, so my apologies if that's wrong. The MiG-23 MLD, the intermediate position of the wing sweep in the automatic sweep control mode, has been changed to 33 degrees at medium speeds. I always feel like it's always better to manually control that stuff because it just doesn't go far enough in terms of what you want it to do. So as long as you can kind of control it at the same time, that is a good idea. The MiG-17PF and also LIM-5P, the engine name has been corrected to VK1F, which once again kind of surprised that that wasn't there before. And then also the MiG-17PF, the Shenyang F5, and the LIM-5P, the engine mass in the X-ray has been increased from 892 to 990 kilos. If you haven't played those vehicles, by the way, I know they may seem like they're kind of a weird BRs. They're really fun to play, apart from the Shenyang. But the MiG-17PF and the LIM-5P, I would say, are really weird vehicles because they're super flexible. They kind of like wander around, they have a nice time, and generally they just kind of feel good. But also there is a lot of crazy vehicles with that BR, so you do have to be a bit careful. I had a fantastic time playing them though. For ground vehicles with the MSC Leclerc, the increased durability of the side screens has been reduced. There was a bug where the armor elements near the sight did not form fragments when penetrated. That has been fixed. You've also got the Spider AIO. The Python 5 rocket engine has been replaced with a reduced smoke motor, which obviously is something which it has in real life. It was kind of funny with this one because so wonderful bug reporting. So this got bug reported a while ago. When, you know, obviously the Spider was ready to go. I think the bug report that they're actually going on is from 21 days ago. And one of the bug reporting managers literally said, like, in the video, it does have a smoked motor. But in the video, it literally didn't. So it got rejected, and then it got accepted. And then it got fixed and accepted before. And it's just like this, whoever this bug reporting manager is, he can't use his eyes. His eyes just don't work. They're just broken. Nothing else you can really say. The CSSA-5 and the Iris, and also the Spider and the Elder, mistakenly present recoil from missile launchers has been removed. I kind of like the recoil though. Like I know it probably shouldn't have been there, but I thought it was kind of cool. Like it added a little animation to the vehicle, you know, made them a little bit more alive. I think overall it was quite nice, but c'est la vie. It's ended up disappearing. Also, they've added some more air spawn points for 10.7 plus missions for locations. So Spain, Vietnam, Moscow, and Sinai get them now. And then also test site 2271, enemy detection zones around spawn have been increased to make it harder for enemies to remain undetected while behind a spawn point. Yeah, if you didn't know on that map, all people do now is they gun for the middle of it. So if you're playing it properly, you gun for the middle, you just break through the middle of it, and then after that, what you do is you just sit in the middle of both spawns and then just shoot everybody as they come out of them. Not very fun, but hopefully they've fixed that now. For the interface, it was in third person. The target acquisition mark for AGM seekers now differs, depending on whether the seekers acquired a point on the ground or a target. Target acquisition is still displayed as the square with a crosshair, and acquisition of a point on the ground is displayed as a square without a crosshair. That's actually quite nice. For me, I would just generally focus on the movement of the crosshair. That's how I kind of worked it out, but that's very positive. There was also a bug where the service record search bar did not work if the query contained capital letters. That's been fixed. So that's what was breaking. That's why I couldn't find things. Interesting. When using a gamepad, the cursor will now return to the selected game mode after closing the server selection window, which is also really nice to see. And also graphic-wise, the picture in the form of a TV missile seeker has been made more contrasted, which makes it more realistic, and the details more distinguishable, and also more overpowered. Don't forget that part. There was also a bug where enemy aircraft contacts became more transparent and disappeared at shorter distances than before 2.47 Leviathan's update, and an issue where graphical artifacts sometimes appeared in the cockpit view when the aircraft was experiencing overloads on PlayStation 4. That's also been fixed. So all sounds very good. A lot of pretty positive things, and I think finally, after this it's fixed and many other things, maybe we can say things are working kind of how they should, whether you agree with how it should or not. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.